What's up? Welcome to the Lanyap Show. I am John going solo. Tonight, we're going to talk about how the Democrat Party has adopted the same technique, philosophies, and subject matter that Jim Jones did when he created his death cult. That's right. Welcome on board the Lanyap Show. Lanyap means a little something extra in Cajun French. And if you don't mind, I'm going to turn up my headphones just a bit so I can hear myself a little bit better and hear what's going on, making sure we're out there. A little something extra. So I do this for fun, absolutely free, no sponsors, nobody telling me what to do or say. And you can find it all over the internet, video and audio versions of the podcast available as well. I stream live on my personal Facebook page just because I want to. Then I save the live video. So if you hear me talking to people in the chat, that's where it's coming from. I'm not putting out my personal Facebook page for everybody to see, but I like to talk to my buddies. This is a South Louisiana podcast. I like to talk with friends and family. I'm going solo tonight, but also you can find the Lanyap Show anywhere here, and I suggest liking and subscribing on multiple platforms. Reason being is you're not going to get all my videos, all my content on all the things. Look, some of them block the videos, flag them for whatever reason. You know how it goes. You know how YouTube is. There are several videos I've made that YouTube has deleted for one reason or another. They claim it's misinformation, and it's not. They just have, contradictory policies. But let's get into it. I want to talk about the cult leader Jim Jones and how the Democrat Party took what he did. They adopted all of it. They found his technique was a great way to convince people to join the cause. Over 900 dead when they drank the Kool-Aid, and the Democrat Party is getting voters doing the same thing. The Democrat Party platform and Jim Jones's philosophy, the same stuff. It's the social justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, all of and communism, all wrapped up. So I'm going to start. I just want to show you, if you Google the Jonestown Massacre, this is what it looks like, folks. This is what it looks like. Yeah. Bodies everywhere. This is Jim Jones. Jim Jones, we'll go through it. I have an article pulled up, and it's a bunch of stuff you may or may not know about it, but we're going to get into it, and I'm going to show you how the Democrat Party is doing the same thing. He started it as a religious cult. Then he got into the social justice thing, and then he went full-blown communist, and then death everywhere. This is this guy. When you want to talk about cults manipulating people and the sexual stuff all in there, his promiscuity, I believe would be the term. He basically raped. If you can call it rape because he manipulated people into having sex with him, men and women. He claimed he was the only heterosexual on earth, and everybody else was. It's crazy. The problem is the media over the years has gaslighted everyone, because when it started, they loved this dude. The Democrats love this dude. He had high praise from Jimmy Carter and the like. A lot of Democrat politicians, California welcomed him with open arms, and we'll get into that. But they want to say, and I'll show you. In fact, let's just go to it. I Googled Jim Jones social justice cult, because that's exactly what it is. And Rolling Stone is a very biased, very left-wing, I don't know, it's not a newspaper anymore, publication. And the person that runs it is a maroon, to say the least. He went on the Joe Rogan Experience a while back, and Joe Rogan made him look like a total moron, right? By the way, this is an old fashioned made with Old Forester Statesman. And again, the Lanyap Show is a long form podcast. I forgot to say that at the beginning. And I will chop this up and make a clip or two out of tonight's broadcast. But this one is going to be one subject, pretty straightforward. All right, let's get into it. You see, Rolling Stone said, tragedy took place under direction of cult leader Jim Jones. How Jim Jones, a man who preached racial and social equality, turned evil. He didn't turn evil. That is the spin that they want to put on it. They want to say everything he did was great up until a certain point, then he turned evil and it went back. No. He was evil from the get-go. The preaching of racial and social equality was just a gimmick that he used to gather a following. He got vulnerable people and he made them into fools. Fools, you understand. That's how he did it, and that's how the Democrat Party gets voters. They take the most vulnerable. They tell them that all their misfortunes are not their fault. They pass the blame and vote for me. I'm the savior, right? And it's people who are the most vulnerable. They are the easiest manipulated. And then it always gets into some crazy sex crap. Same thing with the Democrat Party. It always does. Now you got the whole grooming thing going on, and they're trying to pass off pedophilia like it's a normal thing. It is not. I don't know if there's been a lot of pedophilic allegations against Jim Jones, but I wouldn't put it past him. As we're going to start reading, and we're going to take the Rolling Stones article and read it, even as biased as it is. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if he was sleeping with underage people as well. And it was all about mind manipulation. He found the most vulnerable people. So first off, I do want to say, I'm going to tip my hat that I'm not wearing to Tim Pool, who likes to say that lefties nowadays are in a cult. But lefties will say the right wing is in a cult. Well, in this case, I'm telling you, Tim Pool is actually telling the truth. He's right on track here, as I'm going to show you tonight. It is a cult. The Democrat Party platform right now is a cult. It was based on Jim Jones and Jonestown and manipulating the vulnerable. So it starts with Jim Jones. He was in a rural community. He didn't fit in. I followed, by the way, the Jonestown Massacre story ever since I was little. I heard about it. I read about it. I watched documentaries. One of the latest documentaries that came out, I believe it was CBS, could have been ABC. I'm not definite on that, was on the 40-year anniversary, which I believe was 2018. And it's available on one of the streaming platforms. I don't know if it's Hulu or Amazon Prime. One of these streaming platforms, you can watch it. And you'll see what I'm telling you. It's a lot of it is from that documentary. But Jim Jones came from this rural community. He didn't fit in. His mom was the breadwinner. And he ended up getting into the church, the only place where he felt he belonged, okay? And we're going right there. He was vulnerable. He was vulnerable. Just like some of these kids, start going through puberty or right before puberty. They don't fit in, and now the left is telling them that they're trans for whatever reason, even though their hormones haven't even kicked in yet. Vulnerability is key in this, okay? He was vulnerable, and he found the Pentecostal church. The Pentecostal church were the outcasts in this community. It was still a community, but even the Pentecostals were looked down upon by the other religious groups in that community. But he found himself there. He found an identity there. You get it? Identity. That word is key. And most of you who are watching this, if you watch my content on these platforms, you watch other content on these platforms, you understand why. So he finds an identity, and he starts adopting this. He starts taking in people who are very diverse because they are the outcasts. And he watches some sermons, and he's like, I want to do that. He was very amazed from an early age of watching one person in the front of a church speaking to the congregation, and everybody's like in awe of him. He was an outcast. He wanted to fit in, and then eventually didn't just want to fit in. He wanted the power. He wanted power, just like the Democrat Party and most politicians. So he decided he wanted to be a preacher. Worked his way up, got his own congregation. Originally very religious. And this was during the time where there was still some civil rights struggles and the Jim Crow era, and he was big on diversity because his people were the misfits, and he found them to be the most loyal because they were the easiest to manipulate. And the more he started getting in, he started to do more of the social justice thing because he wanted more people, and he preyed on the African Americans. He did. He preyed on them. And he had more joining the church. You know, they actually said he would set up his congregation, and it would be white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, seat by seat throughout the church, because he was all about integration. And so he started preaching about religion, and then kind of started incorporating all this social justice stuff. And that's really mostly what he preached about. Then all of a sudden, they moved to California, where he was more welcome. He could build a big church, big congregation there. The California politicians, very left-wing, welcomed him with open arms. You even had, again, I said it earlier, Jimmy Carter, the president, say how great it was because, you know, diversity, social justice. A lot of the terms that we're familiar with now, they weren't necessarily talking about back then. They weren't using those terminologies, the diversity, equity, inclusion, etc., but that's what Jim Jones was all about. So high praise for the man from a lot of these Democrat left-wing politicians. And then he's a pervert. He's a pervert. He is a pervert. He started sexual promiscuity. He started brainwashing people, sleeping with them, men and women, and telling them he was doing them a favor, sleeping with them, etc. And that's rape. That's total rape when you manipulate somebody into having sex with you. So he used his power for that. A few people started defecting from the church. They started telling people, hey, look, this guy's actually not a good guy. He raped me. He made me convince. He convinced me that I should let him screw me, and he was doing me a favor by letting him screw me. You know, whatever. So he started to get a lot of controversy. He wanted to run and hide from it. He started a commune in South America, in Guyana, which there was a bunch of land for real cheap. It was in the middle of a freaking jungle. And he managed to convince a bunch of his congregation to move there. He broke up some families. In fact, he was all about breaking up the family. That's another thing you see from the Black Lives Matter cult. Their thing is all about getting rid of the nuclear family. Well, Jim Jones was all about that too. The kids belong to everybody. He actually discouraged romantic relationships because any partnership was a threat to him and his power. So he wanted to do away with all of that stuff, right? So no relationships, although free sex everywhere. Everybody can have sex with whoever they want to have sex with, and everybody took care of the children. Full-blown communist. So by the time he got to Guyana and they started establishing the Jonestown commune, his preaching went from religious to social justice to communism. And he started bitching about capitalism. Now, the commune was not set up for as many people as he wanted to bring there. Under 1,000, but over 900, I believe. Well, yeah, because over 900 died. And he broke up families. He convinced them that it was great in the commune. They recorded videos and they'd send it back to the congregation. They'd watch, and it was all propaganda, how great it was over there, and it really wasn't set up too well, especially not to house and feed 900-something people. Well, you watch in that documentary, they talk about how they were showing that they had a great surplus of food, of bananas. Turns out when they made that video, they just went go buy a bunch of bananas. They still had the tags on them, and most in the congregation did not realize that. It was a black and white video. And they just seen that, and they were like, oh, look, all the bananas. There's plenty of food for us to move out there. Pardon me once again. Dry throat. So he convinced them, lied to them, manipulated them, gave them some propaganda films saying, oh, look, our commune is amazing. We can feed and house all of these people, and we're going to be in our own little place, and we're going to get away from the United States. He was running away because he was starting to get in the media, and people were defecting and telling everybody what he was all about. He was an evil cult leader. So he eventually moves the people to Jonestown, and people say he got crazier and crazier. No, he was always crazy, man. He was always evil. It's just eventually the gig was up. You know what I mean? It was over with. He convinced all those people, all those vulnerable people there, and he couldn't feed them. He couldn't house them. They were all starving, and the walls closed in on him. You had the congressman come down who had read a bunch of these letters and stuff. So I'm going to go down and investigate. And then when he went there, they put on a big show for him. Everybody acted like they were all happy. But there were a few defectors when the congressman was about to leave who said, we want to get out of here. And he confronted Jim Jones about it. Said, look, there's some people here who actually said they want to leave despite what you said. It was only a handful of them. And they talked with Jim Jones, and he wasn't happy. And Jim Jones said you could leave. So they went to the airstrip, and, I mean, it's in a foreign country, Guyana, so they had to fly in. And there was people, they were bringing people back with them now. So you had the congressman and some journalists. They needed to get another plane there because there was more people leaving than what went to the island. So they were waiting for the second plane to show up. Jim Jones sent his bodyguards out there and just started mowing down everybody. And there were very few survivors. When the gunfire started, they went go hide in the jungle. Very few survivors. And then at that point, the bodyguards go back, tell Jim Jones, hey, we shot everybody, we killed everybody. And he knew that was it. He was never going to get away from it. The gig was up. He had been doing these practices of drinking the Kool-Aid, the ritual suicide thing. He didn't call it suicide. It was, what is it? What term did he use? he basically convinced people that they were doing it for political reasons, right? They weren't. It was a statement. It was a political statement about communism, anti-capitalism. They were laying down their bodies for a cause. They were laying down their life for a cause. And they had several practices before, and it was starting to get routine, and this time he did it, and it was for real, and they were really dying, and they seen it, and they continued to go through with it. Over 900 people dead. I showed you the pictures earlier. And then he eventually blew his brains out. So let's go to the Rolling Stones article again. Jonestown, 13 things you should know about the Colt Massacre. A look back at the infamous 1978 mass murder-suicide, one of the most harrowing tragedies in American history. Oh, look, they're bringing up September 11th in here. Now, it's Rolling Stone. You're going to have to bear with me. So, I'm not going to read it word for word. I'm going to try to skim through here. But it's very important, and I want you to see what this guy was all about, and you're going to draw so many comparisons to the modern-day Democrat Party. Let's see. Until the September 11th attacks, the tragedy in Jonestown on November 18th, 1978 represented the largest number of American civilian casualties in a single non-natural event. Unfathomable now, as it was then, that more than 900 Americans, a member of a San Francisco-based religious group called the People's Temple, died after drinking poison and the urging of their leader, the Reverend Jim Jones, in a secluded South American jungle settlement. So the story of Jonestown begins with Jones, a white minister who preached unconventional socialist and progressive ideas to a predominantly African-American congregation called the People's Temple. At the height of its popularity during the 1970s, the temple had a membership estimated in the thousands and was courted by local politicians in San Francisco, including Harvey Milk. But in 1977, Jones had grown paranoid from the media scrutiny. People were figuring out that he wasn't a good dude. They're going to try and say he was going crazy. He wasn't. He was always crazy. He was always evil. Okay? He wasn't just growing paranoid and it was just his drug use that didn't know. They thought he was a good guy. They were in on it too. They got manipulated too. They got had. They got. The media got. Because they're going to try and say he became evil. No, he always was. They just love this diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice crap, and they fall for it hook, line, and sinker. So anyways, they say, according to Rolling Stone, that he got paranoid from the media scrutiny. Yeah, maybe he literally was paranoid, but for the right reason, because he knew they were finding out that he was doing bad things. And he was a piece of crap manipulator. So he and his numerous followers moved to an agricultural settlement, a.k.a. Jonestown, in Guyana, the remote country east of Venezuela. Concern over the welfare of those in the jungle encampment prompted U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan to visit Jonestown in November 1978. I explained to you what happened there. They shot and killed most of them, and then Jones commanded his followers to drink a cyanide-laced punch. It was, and people say drink the Kool-Aid, right? That's where it comes from. It was actually Flavor Aid. That's what everybody knows about it. You talk to the average person, they're like, oh, yeah, the drink the Kool-Aid thing, and it actually was Flavor Aid. And then that's it. That's all they know about it. They don't know that this guy was a far-left Democrat, socialist, communist, social justice warrior, right? Exactly. And whether he believed this stuff or not, I don't know. But that's what he used to get these people. See, we're easily manipulated. I'm going to say the word manipulated 1,000 times in this broadcast, but that's exactly what it was, and it's exactly what's going on today. So he was found dead of a gunshot wound to the head. Speculation is that he did it himself, or that his nurse, Annie Moore, fatally shot him before she killed herself in the same manner. He did not drink the Flavor Aid. Why? I don't know. So let's look at some of these things that Rolling Stone says. This is supposed to be 13 little known facts about Jonestown. Jim Jones' cruelty and madness were rooted in his childhood. Yes. People, exactly. He was always screwed up. He didn't just turn evil. I don't know how they start like this and then they reach the conclusion that, oh, he was great at first and then he just went mad. No. Just because you liked what he was saying at first, you fell victim too. People wondered how Jim Jones, a man who preached racial and social equality, turned evil. He didn't. Oh, look, but as Tim Reiterman explained in Raven, Jones' dark qualities, his need to control people, his deceit, his anger towards people who betray or abandon him, could be traced to his childhood in Indiana. Right, it was always there. They don't really come out and say it here, but that's what it is. He was a loner during his youth. Jim would entertain his playmates in the loft of his family's barn and made them his captive audience. One time, he even locked up his young friends in the barn. He performed experiments on animals and conducted funerals for them. I thought Jimmy was really weird. That was, according to Jeff Gwynn's book, The Road to Jonestown, Jones also had an early fascination with Adolf Hitler. Well, they always try to compare every evil person to Hitler, don't they? When Hitler committed suicide in April 1945, thwarting enemies who sought to capture and humiliate him, Jimmy was impressed, he wrote. Okay. So he moved to his church to California because he feared nuclear war, they said. No, it's because the people of California welcomed him with open arms. That was the big progressive place, right? Social justice. You had that movement still going on. It was still kind of the Jim Crow era. So he was a radical, and they were very embracing of him and the things he was doing. In 1955, Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis. Church stood out for its multicultural membership, which was quite revolutionary during a time of racial segregation. Sometime in the 60s, Jones came across an Esquire article that listed 9 safe places in the world in the event of a nuclear catastrophe, and that's why he went to California, they claim. They say Jones wanted others to adopt his apocalyptic vision. Reiterman wrote in Raven, in his Grand Castle Paranoia, justifiable concerns about the thermonuclear war exploded into a doomsday scenario. He, like some Latter-day Moses, would lead the people to live interracially. Okay. The People's Temple members were a racially mixed family dedicated to improving the world. Ready for this? The People's Temple is often branded as a cult whose members blindly devoted their allegiance to a man and a cause at the expense of their own selves and livelihood. Well, yeah, but what's the but about? A closer look at Jim Jones' followers reveals large and diverse mix of racial backgrounds. Yes, he manipulated them with this social justice crap. And age groups who were drawn to the church's progressive and activist ideals. During their time in the temple, these devoted and hardworking people performed altruistic deeds for the community, and some of them had turned their lives around by getting off drugs and crime. So they say, here's a quote, so much of it was revolving around Jim Jones, and he was the one who was always given the credit for everything, but the people were the attraction. It was amazing to be walking into a place and have African Americans really warmly welcoming you and talking to you and sharing stories with you. It was sweet. Look, a lot of good people, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to badmouth these people. They were all victims, right? Make no mistake about it. Absolutely. They were just very vulnerable. And he took advantage of them. But that doesn't mean they weren't good people in there. So as these good people surrounded each other, unfortunately victims, there was a lot of great camaraderie between them. So looking to expand the reach of his organization, Jones frequently met with Father Divine, a popular controversial black evangelist and founder of the Peace Mission movement. I should do a little bit more research into this guy. I'm not sure, but I bet you there's roots to critical race theory from there. I guarantee it's probably linked. Born sometime in the 1880s, Father Divine started a religious movement in the 1910s that drew huge numbers of worshipers who saw him as God. As described in Raven, a judge suddenly died shortly after handing down the preacher a prison sentence for being a public nuisance. Father Divine lived in an estate in Pennsylvania with his wife. Mother Divine possessed the qualities that Jones mirrored for himself in the People's Temple. He had a multiracial congregation, believed in racial equality, and preached the abstinence of sex. Okay. Now, Jones, I don't know how much abstinence he preached. He was kind of, I guess maybe abstinence unless they were sleeping with him. But it seems like Jones took some of the members of their congregation and brought them on a bus ride back to California. Here's some interesting stuff. It's always about sex with these perverts. Jones didn't always practice what he preached in his personal life. No, because he didn't. I don't know if he really believed any of this stuff he preached. He just wanted to manipulate people, and the social justice crap was the easiest way to get a bunch of victims. And the Democrats' side, an easy way to get voters. In December 1973, he was arrested for lewd conduct at a Los Angeles movie theater. And during his final months in Jonestown, Jones was addicted to pharmaceutical drugs. A married man who adopted children of different racial backgrounds, just like Madonna and all these other celebrities getting these adopted African children. They're just tokens, just little things that they can hang on their necklace, right? Say, oh, look what I did. Huh? Social justice. Woo. They're just tokens, man. So Jones also engaged in sexual relations with some of his female and male followers. Jim said that all of us were homosexuals. Joyce Houston, an ex-Temple follower, said in the Jonestown documentary. All right, you want to get into the transgender stuff, the binary, non-binary, there's a scale, this and that. Here you go. Everyone except him. He was the only heterosexual on the planet, and that the women were all lesbians and the guys were all gay. And so for anyone who showed an interest in sex was just compensating. Tim Carter, another ex-member, said that Jones hated romantic relationships within the People's Temple because they were seen as a threat to the cause and that members should be focused on their work. My wife Gloria and I were one of those couples who never really talked to each other about what our true feelings were about Jones, he says, or anything else because they were afraid that one night they might get called upon the carpet. But that's what it is. He wanted to break down the family. He'd have sex with everybody because he's a pervert. And he just manipulated them. You got to keep them separated, right? Apparently he had a pet chimpanzee. That's neither here nor there. They say a 6-year-old boy was the catalyst that led to the tragedy. I don't know. Yeah, let's read this paragraph, even though I'm not totally sure what this is about. Tim and Grace Stone were a married couple and followers of Jim Jones during the Temple's early years in California. Tim was an attorney for the Temple, and Grace was a member of Jones' inner circle. In 1972, Grace gave birth to a boy named John Victor Stone, and Jones claimed to be the father. Complicating matters about the paternity, Tim signed an affidavit confirming Jones as John's father. When Grace defected from the church in 1976, she left her son with Jones, fearing that her life and John's were in danger. Together, she and Tim, who left the church a year later, sought to get John back through U.S. courts. By that time, John was already in Guyana, and Jones adamantly refused to hand him over, despite court orders that he must do so. The dispute over John's paternity symbolized the bitter conflict between the Temple and its opponents. If the Stones prevailed in getting John back, it would signal the loss of Jones' foreign reaching power over his people and galvanized other relatives of the Temple members seeking the return of their loved ones from Jonestown. In the end, John Victor Stone was among approximately 304 people aged 17 or younger found dead in Jonestown. This one is about the congressman. It wasn't Kool-Aid. Everybody knows that. It's Flavor Aid now. People like to talk about that, and they don't like to talk about what this guy actually preached. And then there was one woman who slept through the whole ordeal. They also, like his sons and the adopted son, I think, were out at a basketball game somewhere else while all this went down, so they still lived. A farewell note from one of the dead. So what I want to do, I'm going to Google, see if I can pull this up. I should have did this beforehand. What was Jim Jones' political views? Let's see what we can pull up here. Apostolic socialism. So should we trust Wikipedia? Look, I'll just show you the results. Why not? Communism, Marxism, and Socialism, Radical Politics. That's from San Diego State University, Jonestown, sdsu.edu, The Politics That Destroyed Jonestown. I don't know. We might pull that up. This is from National Review. Remember when Jim Jones was a hero to Democrats? Let's get into that one. This is a pretty good one because I glanced over this one before, if I'm not mistaken, and it's about how Jimmy Carter and several prominent Democrats praised him for what he was doing, right? Look at all this diversity. Let's see. Oh, boy. Okay, so they're going to bring in Giffords. I remember going through that because they wanted to talk about Giffords, Gabrielle Giffords, and the shooting thing, and they're going through the Tea Party, but oh, boy. Well, we're going to continue without supporting right now. So Jim Jones, borrowing a concept from Huey Newton, called the mass murder of more than 900 people simple, blah, blah, blah. He called it revolutionary suicide. That's what I wanted. I was missing that term earlier. Revolutionary suicide is what he called it because it was all about the revolution. He was a communist. He was a socialist. The Associated Press called the dead religious zealots, but they weren't. It was all political. They weren't. It wasn't all about religion. By the time he had got to Guyana, he really wasn't doing religious stuff anymore. So, Willie Brown. You know this name, Willie Brown, right? Y'all know Willie Brown, right? And Kamala Harris and all them. Okay. That's that Willie Brown, right? From California. Willie Brown, who would become the Speaker of California State Assembly and then Mayor of San Francisco, compared Jim Jones to Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. Harvey Milk described Jonestown as a beautiful retirement community, helping alleviating the world food crisis. Oh, yeah, buy the bananas that they bought with the tax still on them that were all rotten by the time everybody got there, and you watch the documentary and all they had was like rice and milk and there were like mites or whatever in the rice. It was awful. California Lieutenant Governor Mervyn Dimley actually made a pilgrimage to Jonestown that led to a gushing reaction of typical of ideological tourists. Okay. The politically inspired delusions of San Francisco Democrats proved contagious. Jimmy Carter's running mate, Walter Mondale, met with Jim Jones in San Francisco in '76. Carter's wife, Rosalind Carter found Jones so impressive that she campaigned with him, ate with him, and allowed him to introduce her during a campaign speech, telephoned him, and even put him in touch with her sister-in-law, Ruth Carter Stapleton. Friends in high places suppressed investigations in the United States, misled officials in Guyana into dismissing allegations against a lunatic in their midst, and biased State Department hands into siding with Jones in his fight with outraged relatives of the captives of his concentration camp. Boom! Right there. You think all of the stuff going on now, the political manipulation, the dirty tricks, the cover-ups, the sweeping stuff under the rug is just going on now and things are worse. Now, this was going on in the 70s. The same thing. It's the same thing. Dudes, it's the same thing. And there we go, talking about Sarah Palin, blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to go off on that. But, again, that absolutely huge. Let's see what San Diego State University, just read the opening paragraph. Scholars have studied Jonestown in the past from empirical or pragmatic method. They write their analyses based on a superficial understanding of political and social events going on at the time. Quite a few add religious subterfuge in that mix. Dude, there wasn't much religion going on in that. It ended up getting all political, social justice, communism, socialism shit. Watch the documentary from actual survivors. They'll tell you the religious stuff went out the door well before. In addition, numerous former members have a conception of Jim Jones that involves both good and evil, but none of them ever gets beyond this point. Moral condemnation, even of a Holocaust, does not explain complex political issues that led up to it. There are objective historical processes that created the social reality of Jim Jones and his movement. His politics were based on the greatest historical lie of the 20th century. Jones identified Stalinism with communism. So, is this written in defense of communism? Say, no, that was Stalinism. He was thinking of Stalinism. It's not real communism. Is that what they're doing? Is that what this article is? I'm just going to scroll through a little bit. I want to get to like the last paragraph because they wrap it up. In other words, let's see. At the beginning of the 20th century, the world was already divided up by imperialist countries. Leon Trotsky, in his theory of permanent revolution, said that this had completely undermined the nation-state system of the 19th century. In other words, no bourgeois nationalist movement could play a progressive role anymore. They would always be under the yoke of world imperialism. The only way out was to unify the international working class through the fighting for its political independence. This was the socialist program of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Trotsky. Bourgeois nationalist organizations like SWAPO, the Irish Republican Army, and the African National Congress, just to name a few, could not help advance the conditions of working people in their countries at all. Instead, they wanted to enrich themselves at the expense of the same people they were claiming to help. This is why they all made peace with imperialism. Decades ago, their organizations effectively blew up into political dust. Like the People's Temple, they based their politics on the greatest historical falsification of the 20th century. So I don't know where they're really going. I don't want to ascribe anything to them what they were saying, but there you go. Apostolic socialism is what they're saying. Let's look up one more thing. Let's look at his Wikipedia and see if they try to gaslight us or anything about what it was. But it's the same political platform of the Democrats. Jones developed a theology influenced by teachings of William Branham and the Latter Rain movement. Father Divine's divine economic socialism teachings infused with Jones' personal communist worldview. He concealed communist aspects of his teachings until the late 60s, following the relocation of people simple to California, where they were full-on communists, and they were happy to embrace that. Jones saw that those who remained drugged with the opiate of religion had to be brought to enlightenment, which he defined as socialism. See, it wasn't about religion. That was just the gateway. Jones asserted that traditional Christianity had an incorrect view of God. By the early 1970s, Jones began deriding traditional Christianity as a flyaway religion, rejecting the Bible as being a tool to oppress women and non-whites. It was racist, you see? It was racist and sexist, the Bible. Jones referred to traditional Christianity's view of God as a sky god who was no God at all. Instead, Jones claimed to be God and no God besides him. But you see that? Again, it goes back to the racist, sexist. Christianity is whatever, dude. Whatever. I'm not. That's it's the same thing today. It's the same thing today. The Democrat Party is a cult. They're a cult. Look it up. You can read it. We'll read a little bit more. Jones increasingly promoted the idea of his own divinity. I come as a God socialist. He further attacking traditional Christianity. He circulated a tract entitled "The Letter Killeth," criticizing the King James Bible, dismissing King James as a slave owner and a capitalist. He hated capitalism. Jones rejected even the few required tenets of the Disciples of Christ denomination. Instead of implementing the sacraments as prescribed by the disciples, Jones followed Father Divine's Holy Communion practices, created his own baptismal formula, and baptized his converts in the holy name of socialism. Explaining the nature of sin, Jones stated, if you were born in capitalist America, racist America, fascist America, ooh, you thought the word fascist was just something that it was around, but people didn't really start saying it until Antifa in the last 10 years. No. It's all Jim Jones. Fascist America. Then you're born in sin. But if you're born in socialism, you're not born in sin. Drawing on a prophecy in the book of Revelation, he taught that American capitalist culture was irredeemable Babylon. Jones frequently warned his followers of an imminent apocalyptic nuclear race war. He claimed that Nazis and white supremacists would put people of color into concentration camps. There's Nazis everywhere you look, right? That's old. They don't do that anymore, right? They don't just call everybody fascists and Nazis. There's Nazis on every street corner, right? They don't do that anymore. Oh, yep, the Democrat Party does. Jones said he was the Messiah to save people. The Democrat Party is the Messiah to save people, right? He taught his followers the only way to escape the supposed imminent catastrophe was to accept his teachings, and that after the apocalypse was over, they would emerge to establish a perfect communist society. You know, for the sake of our democracy. Our democracy is in jeopardy from these MAGA Republicans. It's all the same thing. While in the United States, Jones feared the public discovering the full extent of his communist views, which he worried would cost him the support of his political leaders and risk the people simple being ejected from the Disciples of Christ. Jones feared that losing the church's tax-exempt status and having to report his financial dealings to the IRS. You see how this worked? In a 1976 interview, Jones actually claimed to be agnostic or an atheist. So again, it was never about religion, people. The religion was communism, socialism, social justice. That was the religion, okay? Critical race theory, same stuff. That is the religion. It was never, he rejected religion over and over and over again. You can read more about that. That's what I wanted to tell you. It's the same thing. You can watch the documentary. I recommend it. It is a legacy media organization, and they just rehash stuff from the 20-year reunion documentary. But still, look it up. Look up Jim Jones' teaching. you're going to find so many parallels, so many things connect to the same crap the Democrat Party teaches now. It's the same stuff because it's a cult. Because there are people, unfortunately, who are easily manipulated. They're down on luck. They're down on life. You tell them it's not their fault. In fact, you blame other people. You blame the system. You don't help them. Instead, you use them. Jim Jones used them in his cult. He was a freak pervert, just like most of the Democrat Party is now. Just like they use people for votes. Eventually, with Jim Jones at the end, it resulted in, quote, revolutionary suicide is what he called it. It was a death cult. What is it going to mean for Democrats, Democratic voters right now? How is this going to end up? Let me know in the comments, guys. Glad you guys tuned in to this. If you're a fan of the long-form content, awesome. Glad you stuck around. I'm going to try to clip this thing up. Hopefully, I got a good enough clip for you. Hopefully, even the clip is not too long because I only did one subject this evening. Check me out. All these areas, including more for the audio version of the podcast. Not all my content is everywhere. Some places block it and flag it for whatever reason. Sometimes there's technical issues, and it's not even censorship. Don't know. But appreciate you watching. I'm working on a show for hopefully next week. If this works, it is going to be awesome. Couple of buddies of mine, and we'll do some deep diving. I don't want to... It might totally fall apart, so I don't want to say too much. But appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, like, share, subscribe. Peace out.